Dr. Elena Vasquez had always been different. While other children played with toys, she built radio transmitters from spare parts. While teenagers worried about popularity, she decoded signals from deep space in her garage laboratory. At 25, she was the youngest physicist ever recruited by the International Space Research Consortium, specializing in quantum communication and xenolinguistics, the theoretical study of alien languages. Nobody expected her to vanish without a trace on a Tuesday morning in March 2157. The surveillance footage from the ISRC facility showed Elena entering Lab Complex 7 at 6:47 a.m., carrying her usual coffee and a worn leather satchel containing her personal research notes. Security cameras tracked her through the sterile white corridors until she reached the Quantum Communication Array, a massive chamber housing humanity's most advanced deep space listening equipment. Then, the cameras went dark. When security arrived 20 minutes later, they found the lab empty except for a faint ozone smell and Elena's coffee cup, still warm on the control console. Her access card remained in the door scanner. Her coat hung on the back of her chair. But Elena herself had simply ceased to exist. The investigation consumed 3 months and involved every intelligence agency on Earth. They analyzed quantum signatures, interviewed colleagues, and dissected every nanosecond of the missing footage. The official report concluded that Dr. Elena Vasquez had suffered a catastrophic molecular displacement event while conducting unauthorized experiments with the quantum array. In simpler terms, she had accidentally vaporized herself. Elena's parents, Maria and Carlos Vasquez, refused to accept this explanation. They hired private investigators, consulted physicists, and even contacted psychics in their desperate search for answers. But, as weeks turned to months and months became years, hope gradually faded into bitter acceptance. The world moved on. New crises emerged. Wars erupted over water rights in the Pacific colonies. The Mars terraforming project faced budget cuts. Elena Vasquez became a footnote in scientific journals, a cautionary tale about the dangers of unsupervised quantum experimentation. Only her childhood friend, Marcus Chen, refused to let her memory fade. Marcus had grown up 3 houses down from Elena in the suburban sprawl of New Angeles. They had shared countless hours stargazing from her backyard, dreaming about life among distant stars. While Elena pursued theoretical physics, Marcus became a journalist specializing in space exploration and first contact protocols. Every year on the anniversary of her disappearance, Marcus published a small memorial article in the Scientific Tribune. He wrote about her brilliance, her passion for discovery, and the unanswered questions surrounding her vanishing. Most readers probably skipped these pieces, but Marcus felt someone needed to remember that Elena Vasquez had been more than just a laboratory accident. The 10th anniversary article appeared on March 15, 2167. Marcus had written it from his cramped apartment overlooking the Luna City spaceport, watching cargo haulers ferry supplies to the outer colonies. He concluded with his usual line, "Elena Vasquez believed that humanity's greatest discoveries lay beyond our world. Perhaps she found what she was searching for among the stars." He published the article at 11:30 p.m. local time and went to bed, never imagining that Elena was reading his words from the command deck of an alien vessel 3 light-years away. Elena had indeed found what she was searching for. But the truth was far stranger than Marcus or anyone else could have imagined. The Quantum Communication Array had been receiving signals for months before Elena's disappearance, not random cosmic noise, but organized transmissions in mathematical patterns that suggested intelligence. Elena had been secretly decoding these messages, working late nights and weekends to unravel their meaning. The signals came from a species called the Zephyrians, an ancient race of energy beings who existed as pure consciousness within crystalline matrix bodies. They had been observing human development for centuries, waiting for the right moment to make contact. That moment came when they detected Elena's brilliant mind working to decode their transmissions. The Zephyrians recognized something special in her cognitive patterns, a rare ability to think in multidimensional mathematics that only appeared once every few thousand years among younger species. Rather than risk the chaos of formal first contact, they made Elena an offer through quantum-encoded dreams that began appearing in her sleep. They showed her wonders beyond imagination, cities that existed in folded spacetime, consciousness that could traverse galaxies instantly, and technologies that made human science look like cave paintings. The choice they presented was simple but profound. Elena could remain on Earth and live a normal human life, eventually dying of old age after perhaps a century. Or she could join them among the stars, her consciousness expanded and enhanced, helping to guide humanity's development from beyond their current understanding. Elena spent sleepless weeks agonizing over this decision. She loved her family, her friends, and her work on Earth. But the opportunity to explore the universe and help her species evolve was irresistible to someone who had always felt constrained by the boundaries of human knowledge. On that March morning, she entered the quantum array one final time. Using modifications she had secretly built into the equipment, Elena opened a dimensional bridge that allowed her consciousness to be transferred into a Zephyrian matrix body while her physical form dissolved into quantum particles. The transition was initially overwhelming. Elena found herself existing as pure thought and energy, her consciousness expanded beyond anything she had previously imagined. She could perceive 11 dimensions simultaneously, communicate telepathically across vast distances, and process information at speeds that made supercomputers seem sluggish. Her new mother was an ancient Zephyrian named Kethera, who had volunteered to guide Elena through her transformation. Kethera was old even by Zephyrian standards. She had witnessed the birth and death of entire star systems, helping dozens of species make the transition from biological to energy-based existence. Under Kethera's patient guidance, Elena learned to control her expanded abilities. She studied advanced mathematics that described the fundamental structure of reality itself. She explored distant galaxies and alternate dimensions. She communicated with species so alien that their very existence challenged her understanding of life. But Elena never forgot her human origins. She watched Earth from afar, monitoring humanity's progress and occasionally influencing events in subtle ways. She prevented 3 separate asteroid collisions, inspired breakthrough technologies through carefully planted dreams, and guided several human scientists toward crucial discoveries. As years passed, Elena began to see patterns that troubled her. Humanity was developing rapidly, but they were also becoming increasingly isolated and militaristic. The establishment of Mars colonies had led to territorial disputes. Competition for resources in the asteroid belt was escalating toward open warfare. Several human factions were developing weapons that could destabilize entire solar systems. Most concerning of all, Earth's governments had begun detecting evidence of alien civilizations. Radio telescopes had identified artificial signals from multiple star systems. Deep space probes had discovered structures that were clearly manufactured rather than natural. Humanity was on the verge of realizing they were not alone in the universe. The problem was that humans were approaching this revelation with fear rather than wonder. Military budgets for space defense were increasing exponentially. Xenophobic political movements were gaining power by promising to protect humanity from alien invasion. Several nations were secretly developing first-strike capabilities designed to destroy alien civilizations before they could threaten Earth. Elena could see the terrible irony of the situation. Humanity was about to discover a universe teeming with intelligent life, but their response would likely trigger the very conflicts they sought to prevent. Most alien species would defend themselves if attacked, and humanity was nowhere near advanced enough to survive a real interstellar war. The Zephyrians had faced similar crises with other developing species. Sometimes they intervened directly, revealing themselves and forcing rapid cultural evolution. Sometimes they remained hidden and allowed events to unfold naturally. Both approaches had advantages and risks, and the Council of Ancients, the governing body of Zephyrian civilization, spent decades debating the best course of action for each situation. Elena found herself in a unique position to influence this decision regarding humanity. As a former human who understood both perspectives, she could serve as an intermediary between species. But, first, she needed to return to Earth and assess the situation personally. The return journey required careful preparation. Elena's consciousness had become too complex to inhabit a normal human body, but Kethera helped her create a hybrid form that could interact with physical matter while maintaining her enhanced abilities. This new body appeared human but possessed subtle differences: slightly luminous skin, eyes that shifted color with her emotional state, and the ability to phase partially out of normal spacetime. More importantly, Elena needed to prepare humanity for the shock of her return. She couldn't simply materialize in her parents' living room after 10 years of absence. The psychological trauma alone might prove devastating, not to mention the questions her reappearance would raise about the nature of her transformation. Instead, Elena decided to make contact with Marcus first. His years of writing about her disappearance had kept her memory alive, and his work as a science journalist meant he was better equipped to understand and communicate her story. She began sending him dreams similar to those the Zephyrians had once used to contact her, mathematical visions that gradually revealed her continued existence. Marcus initially dismissed these dreams as wishful thinking brought on by his annual memorial article. But, as the visions became more detailed and included information he couldn't possibly know, he began to consider more extraordinary possibilities. The final vision came 3 weeks later. Elena appeared to him clearly, her transformed appearance recognizable but undeniably changed. She spoke to him telepathically, explaining where she had been and why she was returning. The conversation felt completely real, but Marcus woke up wondering if he was losing his sanity. That uncertainty ended the following morning when he found a small crystalline device on his kitchen table that definitely hadn't been there the night before. The device projected a holographic message from Elena, providing irrefutable proof that his visions were genuine. Marcus, her recorded image said, "I know this is difficult to believe, but everything you've seen in your dreams is real. I've been living among an alien species called the Zephyrians, learning about the universe and our place in it. Now I need to come home because humanity is approaching a critical moment in its development. We're about to discover that we're not alone, and how we handle that revelation will determine our species' future survival. I need your help to prepare people for what's coming." The message continued with specific instructions. Marcus was to book passage on the next commercial transport to Earth's primary space station, Harmony Station, orbiting high above the Pacific Ocean. Elena would meet him there in exactly 72 hours. She warned him to tell no one about their contact until after they had spoken in person. Marcus spent 2 sleepless days wrestling with this decision. The rational part of his mind insisted that he was experiencing an elaborate hallucination brought on by years of grief and false hope. But the crystalline device was undeniably real, and the technical specifications Elena had provided about Zephyrian technology were far beyond anything he could have imagined. In the end, curiosity overcame caution. Marcus used his press credentials to book passage on a routine supply run to Harmony Station, claiming he was researching an article about civilian life in orbital facilities. The transport captain, a gruff veteran named Sarah Kim, didn't question his presence as long as his documents checked out. Harmony Station was a massive rotating cylinder that housed nearly 50,000 residents, from station personnel to researchers to wealthy tourists seeking the experience of living in space. Marcus had visited several times for stories about orbital development, but this trip felt different. Every interaction seemed surreal as he waited for a reunion that might change everything he thought he knew about reality. Elena had specified that they should meet in Observation Deck 7, a quiet viewing area usually frequented by off-duty workers seeking a few moments of peace while watching Earth slowly rotate below. Marcus arrived an hour early and positioned himself near the large transparent aluminum windows, trying to appear casual while his heart pounded with anticipation. At exactly 15:30 station time, the air near the far wall began to shimmer. Marcus watched in amazement as Elena gradually materialized, her form becoming solid and opaque until she stood before him as if she had always been there. She looked remarkably similar to how he remembered her, but with subtle differences that marked her transformation. Her skin had a faint luminescence, like moonlight on water. Her dark hair seemed to move with its own internal current. And her eyes, once brown, now shifted between colors like oil on a rainbow. "Hello, Marcus," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in dimensions he couldn't name. "Thank you for coming. I know how difficult this must be for you." Marcus found himself unable to speak. 10 years of wondering, hoping, and grieving collapsed into this single moment of impossible reunion. Elena stepped forward and gently touched his shoulder, and he felt a wave of calm wash over him that was definitely not natural. "It's really you," he whispered finally. "Yes and no," Elena replied with a sad smile. "I'm still the person you grew up with, but I'm also something more now. I've seen wonders you can't imagine and learned truths that will change how humanity views the universe. But right now, we need to focus on the immediate crisis." She guided him to a pair of chairs facing the viewing windows, where Earth's blue marble surface provided a stunning backdrop for their conversation. Elena began to explain everything that had happened since her disappearance, her contact with the Zephyrians, her transformation, and the growing threat to humanity's survival. "The universe is full of intelligent life," she said, her shifting eyes reflecting the planet below. "Species that have evolved far beyond our current understanding. Most are peaceful, but some are territorial and view developing civilizations as potential threats. Humanity is approaching the point where we can no longer hide our existence or capabilities. How we handle first contact will determine whether we join the galactic community or become another extinct species." Marcus struggled to process this information. "Why are you telling me this? Why not contact the government directly?" Elena laughed, a sound that carried both humor and sadness. "Because governments think in terms of threats and advantages. They would try to weaponize what I've learned or use it to gain power over other nations. But you think in terms of stories and truth. You understand that this is bigger than politics or national interests." She was right, and Marcus knew it. Already his mind was racing with the implications, not for military strategy or economic advantage, but for what this meant about humanity's place in the cosmos. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. Elena stood and walked back to the window, gazing down at the world that had once been her entire universe. "I need you to help me prepare humanity for what's coming. In 6 months, an alien delegation will arrive at the edge of our solar system. They're peaceful explorers from a species called the Valorians, and they want to establish formal diplomatic contact. This will be humanity's first confirmed encounter with alien intelligence." She turned back to face him, her expression grave. "But several Earth governments have already detected their approach and are preparing to attack first and ask questions later. If that happens, the Valorians will defend themselves, and the resulting conflict will draw on other species who see humanity as a threat to galactic peace. We have 6 months to prevent a war that could exterminate our entire species." Marcus felt the weight of this revelation settling on his shoulders. How do we even begin to tackle something like that? "We start by telling the truth," Elena said simply. "You're going to write the most important story of your career. Not about my return, but about what's coming and why humanity needs to prepare for peaceful contact rather than military confrontation. I'll provide you with enough evidence to prove that alien life exists and is approaching our world." She produced another crystalline device from what appeared to be empty air. "This contains detailed information about the Valorian delegation, including their technology, culture, and intentions. It also includes proof of their existence that your scientists will be able to verify independently." Marcus accepted the device, marveling at its warm, almost living texture. "Who's going to believe this? And even if they do, how do we convince world governments to change their military preparations?" "We don't convince governments," Elena replied. "We convince people. Public opinion is still powerful, even in 2167. When citizens understand that peaceful contact is possible and military action would lead to our extinction, they'll pressure their leaders to make better choices. The key is presenting the information in a way that inspires hope rather than fear." She began outlining a strategy that would have impressed political consultants and media experts. The story needed to be released simultaneously across multiple platforms and languages to prevent any single government from suppressing it. Scientists needed to be given advance copies so they could verify the evidence before critics could dismiss it as fiction. The narrative had to emphasize the incredible opportunities that peaceful contact would provide rather than focusing on the dangers of military confrontation. "You'll also need to prepare people for my public return," Elena added. "Once your story is published, I'll make myself available to answer questions and provide additional evidence. But that's going to raise questions about what happened to me and how I acquired this information." They spent the next 4 hours planning every detail of the revelation. Marcus would return to Earth and spend 2 weeks preparing his story while Elena gathered additional evidence and made contact with key scientists who could help verify her claims. The publication date would be coordinated with her public reappearance, creating a media event too large for any government to ignore or suppress. As their meeting drew to a close, Marcus found himself asking the question that had haunted him for 10 years. "Elena, why didn't you say goodbye?" Your parents, your colleagues, everyone who cared about you, we all thought you were dead. Elena's luminous skin dimmed slightly, and her eyes settled into a deep brown that reminded Marcus of the friend he had known. Because I didn't know if I would survive the transformation or if I would still be human enough to care about the people I left behind. I thought a clean break would be less painful than an uncertain goodbye. She paused, looking down at her transformed hands. I was wrong. The pain of leaving without explanation has haunted me for 10 years. One of the reasons I'm returning is to make amends for that decision, not just to my family and friends, but to myself. I learned incredible things among the stars, but I also learned that running away from difficult goodbyes only makes the pain last longer. Marcus reached out and took her hand, surprised to find it felt warm and entirely human despite its subtle luminescence. They'll forgive you, Elena. Your parents never stopped loving you or hoping you would come home. Elena squeezed his hand gently, and Marcus felt that same unnatural calm wash over him. I hope so. But first, we have a species to save. As Elena began to fade back into the shimmering air from which she had emerged, Marcus called out one final question. What should I call you in the story? Dr. Elena Vasquez doesn't seem adequate anymore. Elena's smile was the last thing to fade as her form dissolved into quantum particles. Her voice echoed in dimensions Marcus couldn't see. I'm still Elena. I'll always be Elena. That's the most important thing I learned among the stars. Transformation doesn't have to mean losing who you are. Marcus sat alone in the observation deck for another hour, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath him while the weight of humanity's future pressed down on his shoulders. In his hand, the crystalline device pulsed with soft light, containing evidence that would change everything his species thought they knew about their place in the universe. The story he was about to write would either save humanity or doom them to a war they couldn't win. But, for the first time in 10 years, Marcus felt hope burning bright in his chest. Elena had returned, and she brought with her the possibility of a future among the stars that was more wonderful than any science fiction dream. Now came the hardest part, convincing 8 billion humans to choose hope over fear when the impossible became reality. Marcus Chen's return to Earth felt different than any previous trip. As his transport descended through the atmosphere toward New Angeles spaceport, he found himself studying the sprawling city below with new eyes. Those millions of lights represented human lives that would be forever changed by what he was about to reveal to the world. The crystalline device Elena had given him pulsed gently in his jacket pocket, warm against his chest like a second heartbeat. During the 3-day journey from Harmony Station, Marcus had spent countless hours studying its contents. The information was overwhelming: detailed technical specifications for Valerian spacecraft, linguistic analyses of their communication protocols, and, most incredibly, real-time footage of their fleet approaching the outer edges of human space. Elena hadn't exaggerated the time pressure. The Valerian delegation would reach the orbit of Pluto in exactly 5 months and 3 weeks. Long-range sensors operated by various Earth governments had already detected their approach, though officials were still debating whether the readings represented natural phenomena or artificial constructs. Marcus knew better. The crystalline device contained sensor data that clearly showed a formation of 12 vessels unlike anything in humanity's current technology base. The ships appeared to be grown rather than built, with organic curves that suggested biotechnology far beyond human understanding. Their propulsion systems generated no visible exhaust or energy signatures that human science could explain. More importantly, the device contained communications that the Valorians had been transmitting toward Earth for the past 6 months. The messages were peaceful expressions of curiosity about human culture and formal requests for permission to establish diplomatic contact. But those transmissions were being intercepted and classified by military intelligence agencies that interpreted them as potential threats rather than friendly overtures. Marcus had worked as a science journalist long enough to understand how governments responded to the unknown. The default assumption was always danger rather than opportunity. He had covered the militarization of asteroid mining operations, the territorial disputes over Mars colonies, and the arms race that had developed around orbital defense platforms. Humanity's first instinct when faced with the alien would be to shoot first and study the wreckage later. The challenge was presenting Elena's information in a way that would overcome decades of conditioning about alien threats. Science fiction had prepared humans to expect invasion and conquest, not peaceful diplomatic contact. Politicians had built careers on promises to defend Earth from external dangers. Military contractors had invested trillions of credits in weapons systems designed to fight interstellar wars. Changing that mindset in less than 6 months would require the most carefully crafted information campaign in human history. Marcus spent his first week back on Earth reaching out to contacts across the scientific community. He needed credible experts who could verify Elena's evidence before he published anything. The story would be dismissed as fiction unless respected voices could confirm its authenticity. Dr. Sarah Okafor, the director of the Global Institute for Extraterrestrial Research, was his first contact. Sarah had spent 30 years studying the possibility of alien life and had published extensively on protocols for potential first contact scenarios. Her reputation was unassailable, and her endorsement would carry enormous weight with both scientific and government communities. Marcus arranged to meet Sarah at her office in the Institute's Geneva facility. The building was a masterpiece of architectural engineering, with laboratories and research centers that represented humanity's most advanced efforts to detect and study extraterrestrial intelligence. Walking through its corridors, Marcus felt the irony of the situation. Scientists had spent decades searching for proof of alien life while Elena had been living among advanced alien civilizations. Sarah's office overlooked Lake Geneva, with walls lined with awards and commendations from scientific organizations around the world. She was a small woman in her 60s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Marcus had interviewed her several times over the years and knew her as someone who combined rigorous scientific methodology with genuine passion for discovery. "Marcus, it's good to see you again," Sarah said as they settled into comfortable chairs near the window. "Your message mentioned something about Elena Vasquez's disappearance." "I remember that case, tragic waste of a brilliant mind." Marcus carefully removed the crystalline device from his jacket. "Dr. Okafor, I need you to examine something, but I want you to promise that you'll analyze it completely before making any judgments about how I obtained it." Sarah raised an eyebrow but nodded. "I've been studying anomalous phenomena for 3 decades. I've learned to keep an open mind about unusual evidence." Marcus placed the device on her desk, where it immediately began projecting a holographic interface that responded to Sarah's proximity. Her reaction was exactly what he had hoped for. Scientific curiosity overrode any questions about the device's origins as she began studying its construction and capabilities. "This technology is at least 50 years ahead of anything we've developed," she murmured, running her fingers through the holographic displays. "The quantum processing architecture alone would revolutionize our computing capabilities." She spent the next 3 hours analyzing the device's contents while Marcus watched her expression shift from skepticism to amazement to something approaching awe. The linguistic analysis of Valerian communication protocols particularly fascinated her. Elena had provided detailed breakdowns of their mathematical language structure that demonstrated clear intelligence and peaceful intentions. "Marcus," Sarah said finally, "where did you get this? And please don't tell me someone found it in a crashed UFO." Marcus had prepared for this moment during his return journey from Harmony Station. The truth was too complex to explain without extensive background, but he needed Sarah's trust before he could reveal Elena's transformation. "It came from Dr. Elena Vasquez," he said simply. "She didn't die 10 years ago. She made contact with an alien species and has been living among them, learning about the universe and humanity's place in it. Now she's returned to help us prepare for formal first contact." Sarah's scientific training warred with the impossibility of what she was hearing. "Marcus, I've known you for 8 years. You're one of the most credible journalists in the space exploration field. But what you're suggesting violates everything we understand about physics, biology, and the limitations of human space travel." Marcus activated another function of the crystalline device, projecting a holographic recording of Elena from their meeting at Harmony Station. Sarah watched in stunned silence as Elena explained her transformation and the approaching Valerian delegation. "I understand how difficult this is to accept," Elena's image said, addressing Sarah directly. "But the evidence in this device can be independently verified using your own instruments and analysis methods. I'm not asking anyone to take this on faith. I'm asking them to examine the proof and draw their own conclusions." Sarah stared at the holographic projection for several long minutes after it ended. The linguistic analysis alone represents years of work by someone with advanced xenolinguistic training. The technical specifications for these Valerian vessels are consistent with theoretical models for biotechnology-based spacecraft. And this communication data. She paused, accessing another section of the device. These aren't random signals. They're clearly structured attempts at peaceful contact, using mathematical principles that would be universally understood by any scientifically advanced species. If this is genuine, then we're looking at the most significant discovery in human history. Marcus felt tension he hadn't realized he was carrying begin to ease. Will you help verify the evidence? I need credible scientific voices to support this before I publish anything. Sarah nodded slowly. I'll need to bring in specialists from other fields: astrophysics, xenobiology, quantum mechanics. But, yes, if this evidence holds up to rigorous analysis, then humanity needs to know about it immediately. They spent the rest of the day planning a verification process that would involve some of Earth's most respected scientists. Sarah would coordinate the analysis while maintaining strict secrecy until they were ready to present their findings publicly. The timeline was aggressive. They needed conclusive results within 2 weeks to allow time for Marcus to prepare his story and coordinate its release. While Sarah worked with her scientific team, Marcus reached out to Elena's parents. Maria and Carlos Vasquez had aged considerably in the 10 years since their daughter's disappearance. Maria's dark hair had turned gray, and Carlos walked with a cane following a stroke 3 years earlier. But their eyes still lit up with hope whenever anyone mentioned Elena's name. Marcus visited them at their home in the same suburban neighborhood where he and Elena had grown up. The house felt frozen in time, with Elena's childhood bedroom preserved exactly as she had left it and family photos chronicling her life from birth through her graduation from the Space Research Consortium. We never gave up hope, Maria said as they sat in the living room where Marcus had spent countless hours during his youth. Everyone told us she was dead, but mothers know. I could feel that she was still alive somewhere, even if we couldn't find her. Carlos gripped his cane with trembling hands. Do you have news about our daughter? After all these years, any information would be a blessing. Marcus had debated how to approach this conversation during his entire flight from Geneva. Elena's transformation would be difficult for anyone to accept, but her parents deserved to know the truth before the rest of the world learned about her return. Mr. and Mrs. Vasquez, Elena is alive, he said simply. She's changed significantly from the daughter you remember, but she's coming home. The effect on Elena's parents was immediate and profound. Maria began crying while Carlos simply stared at Marcus in shock. They peppered him with questions he couldn't fully answer. Where had she been? Why hadn't she contacted them? When would they see her again? Marcus explained as much as he could without revealing details about alien contact or Elena's transformation. He told them she had been involved in a classified research project that had taken her far from Earth, that she couldn't communicate with family for security reasons, and that she would be able to explain everything when she returned publicly in 2 weeks. It wasn't the complete truth, but it was accurate enough to prepare them for what was coming. Elena would need to explain her transformation in her own words, at her own pace, when she was ready to face the emotional complexity of reuniting with family who had mourned her as dead. Meanwhile, Dr. Okafor's verification team was making remarkable progress. The crystalline device had provided access to information that could be cross-referenced with existing human knowledge and independently confirmed using Earth-based instruments. The linguistic analysis team, led by Dr. James Morrison from the University of Cambridge, confirmed that the Valerian communication protocols demonstrated genuine intelligence and peaceful intentions. The mathematical structures were elegant and sophisticated, showing clear attempts to establish common ground for communication. Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the Tokyo Institute of Technology analyzed the technical specifications for Valerian spacecraft and confirmed that they were consistent with theoretical models for advanced biotechnology. More importantly, she was able to predict the emission signatures these ships would generate and found matching readings in classified sensor data from government monitoring stations. Perhaps most significantly, Dr. Raman Patel from the Indian Space Research Organization was able to use the device's astronomical data to locate the Valerian fleet using Earth-based telescopes. The ships were exactly where Elena's information indicated they would be, following the approach vector and timeline she had provided. After 12 days of intensive analysis, Sarah's team reached a unanimous conclusion: the evidence was genuine. Elena Vasquez had somehow gained access to information about an approaching alien delegation, and that delegation would arrive at the edge of human space in less than 5 months. Marcus, Sarah said during their final verification meeting, "I've spent my entire career hoping for this moment, but I never imagined it would come with such a compressed timeline. We need to prepare humanity for the most significant event in our history, and we have 4 months to prevent our governments from responding with military force." Marcus nodded grimly. Elena believes that public awareness is our best hope for encouraging peaceful contact. If citizens understand what's at stake, they can pressure their leaders to choose diplomacy over warfare. He had spent the verification period writing and rewriting his story, crafting it to maximize impact while minimizing fear. The article needed to be comprehensive enough to establish credibility while remaining accessible to general audiences. Most importantly, it needed to inspire wonder and hope rather than terror and paranoia. The headline alone had taken him 3 days to perfect: First Contact, Peaceful Alien Delegation Approaches Earth as Missing Scientist Returns with Evidence of Advanced Civilizations. The story began with Elena's disappearance and Marcus's decade-long search for answers. It described their reunion at Harmony Station and Elena's revelation about her transformation. But the focus remained on the approaching Valorians and the incredible opportunity they represented for humanity's development. Marcus had structured the article to address the most likely objections and fears. He provided detailed evidence for the aliens' peaceful intentions, expert analysis confirming their advanced but non-threatening technology, and historical parallels showing that human societies had always benefited from contact with more advanced civilizations. Most importantly, he painted a picture of the future that peaceful contact could provide. The Valorians possessed technologies that could solve Earth's energy crisis, cure diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries, and open up the galaxy for exploration and settlement. But those benefits would only be available if humans chose cooperation over confrontation. Elena had provided additional evidence to support the story: detailed cultural analysis showing that Valorian society valued harmony and knowledge above conquest or expansion. Their approach to Earth was consistent with how they had contacted dozens of other species throughout the galaxy, always offering knowledge and assistance rather than demanding submission or resources. The verification team agreed to go public with their findings simultaneously with Marcus's story. Dr. Okafor would hold a press conference at the Global Institute for Extraterrestrial Research, presenting the scientific evidence while Marcus's article provided context and background. But they needed one more element to make the revelation truly compelling: Elena herself. Marcus contacted her using the communication protocol she had established before their Harmony Station meeting. The crystalline device could transmit quantum-encoded messages across interstellar distances, allowing near-instantaneous communication with Elena despite her location among the Zephyrian fleet. Her response came within minutes. She was ready to return to Earth and face the consequences of her revelation. Elena materialized in Marcus's apartment at exactly midnight on the day before their coordinated announcement. Her luminescent form seemed to glow more brightly in the familiar surroundings of Earth, and her color-shifting eyes reflected emotions that were entirely human despite her transformation. "How do I look?" she asked with a nervous laugh. "I know my appearance will raise questions about what happened to me." Marcus studied his transformed friend, noting how her alien enhancements somehow made her seem more essentially herself rather than less human. "You look like Elena, but enhanced. People will be curious, but I think they'll recognize that you're still fundamentally the same person." Elena nodded, but he could see tension in her luminescent features. "I'm more nervous about this than I was about my original transformation. At least then, I only had to worry about my own survival. Tomorrow's announcement will affect every human being alive." They spent the night reviewing final preparations for the revelation. Elena would appear at Dr. Okafor's press conference after Marcus's story was published simultaneously across major news networks worldwide. She would provide additional evidence, answer questions about her transformation, and, most importantly, explain why peaceful contact with the Valorians was crucial for humanity's survival. The plan was ambitious and risky. They were betting humanity's future on the hope that public knowledge would prevent government military responses to the alien approach. But Elena's experience with advanced civilizations had taught her that transparency and honesty were always preferable to secrecy and fear when dealing with first contact scenarios. "There's something else," Elena said as Dawn approached outside Marcus's window. "The Valorians aren't the only species observing humanity's response to their approach. The galactic community is watching to see how humans handle their first formal contact with alien intelligence. Our reaction will determine how other species view us and whether they're willing to share their knowledge and technology." She moved to the window, gazing up at stars that were invisible in the city's light pollution. "If we respond with violence and paranoia, we'll be classified as a dangerous species and isolated until we mature enough for peaceful contact. That could take centuries or millennia. But if we demonstrate wisdom and curiosity, we'll be welcomed into a community of civilizations that spans the galaxy." Marcus felt the weight of this revelation. Tomorrow's announcement wasn't just about preventing a war with the approaching aliens, it was about determining humanity's place in the universe for generations to come. As the sun rose over New Angeles, Elena prepared for what would either be the greatest triumph or the greatest disaster in human history. In a few hours, 8 billion people would learn that they were not alone in the universe, and their response would echo across the stars for centuries to come. The truth that had emerged from Elena's transformation was simple but profound: humanity stood at a crossroads between fear and wonder, between isolation and cosmic citizenship. The choice they made in the coming months would determine not just their survival, but their destiny among the stars. Marcus uploaded his story to news networks around the world at exactly 9 a.m. Geneva time, coordinated with Dr. Okafor's press conference and Elena's public reappearance. Within minutes, the most significant news in human history was spreading across the globe, carried by every form of communication technology humanity had developed. The age of isolation was ending. The question that remained was whether humanity would embrace the universe with open arms or meet it with clenched fists. Elena stood in Marcus's apartment, watching newsfeeds as her story spread across the world, knowing that in a matter of hours she would step before cameras and microphones to help her species choose its future among the stars. Her transformation had taken her far from Earth, but it had ultimately brought her home to face the greatest challenge of her life: convincing humanity that the universe was full of friends they had yet to meet. The crystalline device pulsed with soft light on Marcus's desk, containing enough evidence to change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the cosmos. In a few hours, that evidence would be public knowledge, and humanity would never be the same again. For better or worse, the future was about to begin. The world exploded into chaos within 6 hours of Marcus's story going live. Elena watched from the Geneva Institute as news networks scrambled to verify the impossible claims being made across their headlines. Social media platforms crashed under the volume of traffic as billions of people shared, debated, and argued about the revelation that alien life was approaching Earth. Stock markets plunged as investors panicked about the economic implications of first contact. Religious leaders issued conflicting statements about the theological significance of alien intelligence. Politicians demanded emergency sessions to address potential threats to national security. But, most remarkably, public opinion began shifting in exactly the direction Elena had hoped for. Dr. Sarah Okafor's press conference had provided the scientific credibility that Marcus's story needed. When respected experts confirmed that the evidence was genuine and the approaching aliens appeared peaceful, millions of people began expressing excitement rather than fear about humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Online polls showed that 63% of respondents wanted their governments to prepare for diplomatic contact rather than military confrontation. Petitions demanding peaceful first contact protocols gathered millions of signatures within hours. Protests erupted outside government buildings around the world, with crowds chanting "Choose hope, not war" and carrying signs demanding transparency about alien contact preparations. Elena felt cautiously optimistic about the initial response, but she knew the real test would come when she revealed herself publicly. Marcus's story had prepared people for her transformation, but actually seeing a human who had been enhanced by alien technology would trigger new fears and questions. She materialized at the press conference podium at exactly 2 p.m., appearing in a shimmer of quantum particles that caused gasps and camera flashes throughout the packed auditorium. Elena had chosen to manifest her most human-appearing form, minimizing the luminescent effects and keeping her eyes a steady brown, but there was no hiding the fact that she had been fundamentally changed. My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez, she began, her voice carrying those strange harmonics that seemed to resonate in additional dimensions. 10 years ago, I made contact with an alien species called the Zephyrians. Today, I've returned to help humanity prepare for the most important moment in our history. The questions came fast and aggressive. Reporters demanded proof of her identity, explanations for her transformation, and details about alien technology and capabilities. Elena answered each query with patience and precision, providing evidence that clearly demonstrated her enhanced knowledge while maintaining her essential humanity. I know this is difficult to accept, she said in response to one skeptical journalist. I would have reacted the same way before my transformation. But I'm still the same person who grew up in New Angeles, who earned her doctorate in quantum physics, who always wondered what life might exist among the stars. I've simply been given the opportunity to find out. The most powerful moment came when Elena demonstrated her abilities by interfacing directly with the auditorium's holographic projection system, displaying real-time images of the approaching Valerian fleet. The ships were beautiful and clearly alien, with organic curves and bioluminescent markings that pulsed with internal life. These beings have traveled across the galaxy to meet us, Elena explained as the images showed Valerian crew members, tall, graceful humanoids with iridescent skin and large, intelligent eyes. They're scientists and explorers, just like us. They want to share knowledge and learn about human culture. They represent our first opportunity to join a galactic community of peaceful civilizations. But Elena also showed images of what would happen if humanity responded with violence. The Valerian ships might appear organic, but they possessed defensive capabilities that could neutralize any weapon in Earth's arsenal. More importantly, an aggressive response would trigger intervention from other species who viewed unprovoked attacks as threats to galactic peace. The choice is simple, Elena concluded. We can meet our cosmic neighbors with curiosity and friendship, opening up possibilities we can't even imagine. Or we can respond with fear and hostility, ensuring that humanity remains isolated and primitive until we develop the wisdom to join civilized species. The press conference was broadcast live across every major network and streaming platform on Earth. Within minutes, clips were being shared billions of times across social media. Elena's demonstration of alien technology and her clear explanation of the stakes involved shifted public opinion even further toward peaceful contact. But governments were a different matter entirely. Intelligence agencies had been tracking the approaching alien vessels for months, developing contingency plans that focused on military responses rather than diplomatic solutions. The revelation that these ships belonged to peaceful explorers conflicted with decades of planning based on assumptions of alien hostility. President Sarah Martinez of the North American Federation called an emergency session of the Global Security Council within hours of Elena's press conference. Military leaders from major spacefaring nations gathered in secure facilities around the world to discuss their response to the alien approach. Elena monitored their communications using technology that human science couldn't detect. The conversations were exactly what she had feared: discussion of preemptive strikes, orbital weapons deployments, and worst-case scenarios that assumed hostile intent despite all evidence to the contrary. General Harrison Clark, commander of Earth's primary space defense network, advocated for an aggressive response during the emergency session. We can't risk the survival of our species on the assumption that these aliens are peaceful. Every military principle dictates that we should strike first and maintain defensive superiority. President Martinez was more cautious, but equally focused on security concerns. The evidence suggests these beings might be peaceful, but we need to consider the possibility that Dr. Vasquez has been compromised or deceived. An advanced alien species might be using her to lower our defenses before launching an attack. Elena realized that government leaders were trapped by their own institutional thinking. They had been elected to protect their citizens from threats, and their entire framework for understanding international relations was based on competition and conflict. The concept of genuinely peaceful contact with superior technology challenged everything they thought they knew about power dynamics. She needed a different approach. Rather than trying to convince government leaders directly, Elena began working with the growing grassroots movement that was demanding peaceful first contact. Scientists, artists, educators, and ordinary citizens were organizing rallies, publishing open letters, and creating artwork celebrating humanity's entry into the galactic community. Elena appeared at universities around the world, sharing her knowledge with students and faculty who were hungry to learn about alien civilizations. She demonstrated Zephyrian mathematics that could revolutionize human technology, described worlds where multiple species lived in harmony, and painted a picture of the future that humanity could choose if they approached contact with wisdom rather than fear. The response was overwhelming. Young people especially embraced the possibility of exploring the galaxy and learning from advanced civilizations. They organized peaceful demonstrations outside government buildings, demanding that their leaders choose diplomacy over warfare. Social media became a battlefield between those advocating for peaceful contact and those demanding military preparedness. Elena's supporters shared images and videos of her demonstrations, spreading scientific knowledge about alien technology and culture. But opposition groups circulated fear-based content suggesting that Elena had been brainwashed or replaced by alien infiltrators. The debate intensified when Elena's parents made their first public statements since her return. Maria and Carlos Vasquez appeared on major news networks, confirming that Elena was indeed their daughter and vouching for her character and intentions. "Our Elena has always been curious about life beyond our world," Maria said during a tearful interview. When she was a little girl, she would spend hours looking at the stars and wondering if anyone was looking back. Now she's found her answer, and she's come home to share it with all of us. Carlos, despite his frail health, spoke with passionate conviction. "I've watched my daughter grow from a curious child into a brilliant scientist. The person we saw at that press conference is the same Elena we've always known, just enhanced by experiences we can't fully understand. If she says these aliens come in peace, then we should listen to her." The personal testimony from Elena's family helped counter suggestions that she had been replaced or compromised by alien influence. Public opinion polling showed continued strong support for peaceful contact, with numbers reaching 71% in favor of diplomatic rather than military responses. But Elena knew that public opinion alone wouldn't be sufficient if military leaders decided to act preemptively. Earth's orbital defense platforms included weapons capable of attacking the Valerian fleet while it was still months away from Earth. A first strike could be launched and completed before public protests could prevent it. She needed to demonstrate the futility of military action while also showing the incredible benefits that peaceful contact could provide. Elena announced a series of public demonstrations that would showcase alien technology and its potential applications. Working with Dr. Okafor's team, she would provide humanity with scientific advances that could revolutionize their civilization, but only if they chose peaceful contact over military confrontation. The first demonstration took place at the European Center for Nuclear Research, where Elena worked with physicists to implement Zephyrian energy manipulation techniques. Using principles that human science was centuries away from discovering, she helped them create a fusion reaction that generated massive amounts of clean energy with no radioactive waste. "This is what the Valorians want to share with us," Elena explained to the assembled scientists and journalists. "Clean energy that could power our civilization for millennia. Medical technologies that could eliminate genetic diseases and extend healthy human lifespans. Transportation methods that could take us to the stars." She paused, her color-shifting eyes reflecting the glow of the perfectly contained fusion reaction. "But these gifts can only be shared with species that have demonstrated wisdom and peaceful intentions. If humanity responds to first contact with violence, we'll be classified as a dangerous species and quarantined until we develop better judgment." The energy demonstration was followed by medical advances at research hospitals around the world. Elena worked with doctors to implement healing techniques that could regenerate damaged organs and repair genetic defects. Children born with birth defects were healed instantly. Cancer patients were cured without invasive treatments. Paralyzed individuals regained full mobility. Each demonstration strengthened public support for peaceful contact while creating pressure on government leaders to reconsider their military preparations. How could any rational leader choose warfare over access to technologies that could eliminate human suffering and expand their species' capabilities? But Elena's most powerful demonstration came when she contacted the Valerian fleet directly, establishing communication channels that allowed real-time conversations between human scientists and alien explorers. The Valorians were exactly as Elena had described, peaceful, curious beings who had traveled across the galaxy to learn about human culture and offer their friendship. They shared images of their homeworld, a lush planet where multiple species had evolved together in harmony. They demonstrated their technologies, showing how they had developed biotechnology that worked in partnership with natural systems rather than dominating them. Most importantly, they explained their philosophy of contact. The Valorians belonged to an ancient network of civilizations that helped younger species make the transition from planetary to galactic awareness. They had guided dozens of worlds through this crucial period, offering knowledge and assistance to those who demonstrated wisdom and peaceful intentions. "We do not seek to conquer or control," explained Ambassador Veltar, the Valorian expedition leader, speaking through translation devices that Elena had helped human scientists construct. "We seek to learn and to share. Your species shows great promise, but you also show the aggressive tendencies that have destroyed many civilizations. We come to offer you a choice: embrace peace and join the galactic community, or remain isolated until you develop the wisdom necessary for cosmic citizenship." The conversations with Valorian scientists were broadcast live across Earth's communication networks, allowing billions of humans to witness peaceful contact with alien intelligence for the first time in history. The aliens demonstrated genuine curiosity about human art, music, and culture, while offering to share their own achievements in science, philosophy, and technology. Public opinion shifted dramatically in favor of peaceful contact as people realized that the approaching aliens were not conquerors or invaders, but teachers and potential friends. Support for diplomatic responses reached 84% in global polling, with massive demonstrations demanding that governments choose peace over warfare. But Elena knew that some military leaders were still planning preemptive strikes, convinced that any alien approach represented an existential threat regardless of apparent peaceful intentions. She needed to prevent these attacks while demonstrating that humanity was capable of choosing wisdom over fear. The solution came from an unexpected source: Elena's enhanced connection to the Zephyrian collective consciousness. Through quantum entanglement that transcended space and time, she was able to communicate instantaneously with Kethara and other advanced beings who had been observing humanity's response to first contact. "The test is nearly complete," Kethara explained during one of their mental conversations. "Humanity has shown remarkable wisdom in choosing peaceful contact over military confrontation. But a few of your leaders still plan to attack the Valorian fleet. You must prevent this while also demonstrating that your species has truly chosen to embrace cosmic citizenship." Elena understood what was being asked of her. She needed to take direct action to prevent military attacks while also proving that humanity was ready for advancement to the next level of galactic civilization. Working with Marcus and Dr. Okafor, Elena coordinated a final demonstration that would determine humanity's future among the stars. On the day when military strikes were scheduled to launch against the Valorian fleet, Elena would use her enhanced abilities to disable Earth's weapon systems while simultaneously upgrading human technology to levels that would make aggression both impossible and unnecessary. The plan was risky and would require Elena to reveal the full extent of her transformation. But it was the only way to ensure that humanity's first contact with alien intelligence would lead to friendship rather than warfare. On the morning of the planned military strikes, Elena appeared simultaneously at defense installations around the world. Using abilities that seemed like magic to human observers, she interfaced directly with weapons systems and communication networks, temporarily disabling attack capabilities while broadcasting a final message to every person on Earth. "Citizens of Earth," her image said, appearing on every screen and communication device on the planet. "In the next few hours, your leaders will decide whether humanity joins the galactic community or remains isolated in fear. I'm using abilities that alien friends have given me to prevent weapons from being fired in anger and fear. But the choice of how we respond to our cosmic neighbors must be made by all of humanity, not just a few military leaders." Elena's global broadcast continued for 37 minutes, during which she shared everything she had learned about the universe and humanity's place in it. She showed images of thousands of worlds where multiple species lived together in peace, sharing knowledge and exploring the cosmos as partners rather than competitors. Most importantly, she demonstrated how human civilization could advance if they chose peaceful contact. Using technology that appeared miraculous to current human science, Elena temporarily enhanced Earth's communication networks, energy systems, and medical facilities, giving everyone a glimpse of what their world could become. "The universe is vast and full of wonders," Elena concluded her broadcast. "We can explore it together with friends who want to teach us, or we can remain alone until we develop the wisdom to join them. The choice is yours to make. By the time Elena's broadcast ended, public demonstrations in support of peaceful contact had erupted in every major city on Earth. Government leaders found themselves facing overwhelming pressure from citizens who demanded that military strikes be cancelled in favor of diplomatic contact. President Martinez called an emergency session of the Global Security Council, but the result was very different from previous meetings. Faced with massive public support for peaceful contact and clear evidence that military action would be futile, world leaders voted unanimously to establish formal diplomatic protocols for first contact with the Valerian fleet. The aliens were invited to establish contact at Luna Station, humanity's largest orbital facility. Teams of scientists, diplomats, and cultural experts were assembled to manage humanity's first formal interactions with extraterrestrial intelligence. Elena served as the primary liaison between species, her transformation allowing her to understand both human concerns and alien perspectives. The initial negotiations were careful and respectful, with both sides working to establish trust and mutual understanding. The Valorians were patient teachers, sharing knowledge gradually while allowing humanity time to adapt to new concepts and technologies. They provided medical advances that eliminated most genetic diseases, energy systems that ended humanity's dependence on fossil fuels, and transportation technologies that opened up the solar system for exploration and settlement. In return, humans shared their art, music, and cultural achievements, which the Valorians found endlessly fascinating. Human creativity and emotional expression were unique among galactic civilizations, offering perspectives that enriched the cosmic community. Elena watched the successful integration of humanity into galactic civilization with deep satisfaction. Her decision to leave Earth without farewell had led to the greatest transformation in human history, opening up possibilities that her species could never have achieved alone. But, perhaps most importantly, Elena was finally able to reunite properly with her family and friends. The fearful child who had left without saying goodbye had returned as someone who could help her entire species say hello to the universe. Maria and Carlos Vasquez wept when they first embraced their transformed daughter, marveling at how she had retained her essential humanity despite her alien enhancements. Marcus continued working as a journalist, but now he covered stories about humanity's expanding presence among the stars rather than their isolation on a single world. Dr. Okafor became Earth's first ambassador to the galactic community, working with Elena to establish research partnerships that advanced human science by centuries in just a few years. The Global Institute for Extraterrestrial Research was expanded into an interplanetary facility that coordinated humanity's interactions with dozens of alien civilizations. Most remarkably, Elena's transformation became a model for other humans who wanted to explore the universe more fully. The Zephyrians established an exchange program that allowed selected individuals to experience consciousness expansion while maintaining their connections to human culture and values. Elena often stood in the observation decks of Luna Station, watching as human ships departed for distant stars alongside Valerian vessels and other alien craft. The scared young woman who had activated an alien communication device in a laboratory 10 years earlier had become a bridge between worlds, helping her species take their place among the cosmos. The universe had indeed been full of friends waiting to be met. Humanity had simply needed the courage to choose hope over fear, wonder over suspicion, and friendship over isolation. Elena's choice to leave Earth without farewell had ultimately taught her species the most important lesson of all: sometimes you had to venture into the unknown to discover that home was wherever courage and curiosity could flourish together. Standing among the stars she had dreamed about as a child, Elena finally understood that her greatest transformation hadn't been the alien enhancements to her consciousness, but the realization that saying goodbye was simply another way of saying hello to possibilities yet to be discovered. Humanity's future among the stars stretched out before them, infinite and bright with promise. And Elena Vasquez, the girl who had once gazed at distant suns from her backyard, had helped her entire species reach out and touch the face of eternity.